The Drake Passage is one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Ships disappear there without warning. And sometimes, the ocean answers back. Tonight, you'll hear two maritime horror stories that should never have happened but did. The first time I heard the voice on Channel 16, I was grateful for it. And that's something I still feel ashamed admitting. Gratitude is not the emotion you're supposed to feel when you're crossing the Drake Passage at night. When the sea is black and swollen like a living thing. When the wind keeps finding new ways to scream against steel. But I was tired, hollowed out by weeks at sea, and a reason for being there that I hadn't told anyone on board. And that voice gave me something familiar to hold on to. My name is Evan Mercer. I was 29 at the time, third mate aboard the research vessel Caldera, a ship built for polar work, thick-hulled and overconfident, chartered to carry a mixed crew of scientists and sailors south toward Antarctica. I took the job because my older brother, Luke, had disappeared 3 years earlier while crewing on a supply ship that vanished somewhere between Cape Horn and the ice. Officially, it was written off as a storm casualty. Another statistic swallowed by the passage. Unofficially, no wreckage was ever found. No distress call logged, nothing but silence. I told myself I signed on for the money and the hours, but the truth was simpler and harder to say out loud. I wanted to be in the same water that had taken him. I wanted answers, even if they weren't the kind that let you sleep at night. Channel 16 is the international distress frequency, the one every ship monitors, even when there's nothing but static and the low, nervous breathing of the ocean. Most nights, it's a background hiss, something you barely register. That night, I was alone on the bridge. The lights dimmed low to preserve night vision, the radar glowing green, painting empty arcs across a screen that showed no other vessels within miles. The Caldera rolled beneath me, a slow, nauseating sway, the kind that works its way into your bones. I remember thinking about Luke's last voicemail, the one where he joked about the worst water on Earth and promised to bring back a souvenir shaped like a wave. I was replaying that memory when the static on Channel 16 sharpened, like someone clearing their throat. Then a voice came through. Any vessel on 1 to 6. This is the transmission cut, drowned by static. I leaned forward instinctively, hand already moving to the radio. This is research vessel Caldera, I said, keeping my voice steady the way I'd been trained. Go ahead. For a few seconds, there was nothing. I told myself it had been interference, atmospheric noise, the kind you get down there where weather systems collide like fists. Then the voice returned, closer somehow, more defined. Caldera, thank God, we need assistance. It was a man's voice, strained but controlled. American by the sound of it, maybe late 30s or 40s. Professional, maritime. My skin prickled. Identify your vessel, I said. State your position. There was a pause, just long enough to feel wrong. We're having trouble with our instruments, the voice said. We lost propulsion, heavy seas, we're taking on water. He rattled off coordinates. I typed them into the navigation system, my stomach tightening as the map updated. The position was off our starboard bow, less than 10 nautical miles away, close enough that we should have seen something on radar. I glanced at the screen again. Empty. I'm not picking you up on radar, I said. Can you confirm your vessel name? Another pause. Static, crackled, rose, fell. "We're the North Star," the voice said finally. "Cargo vessel." The name meant nothing to me, but that wasn't unusual. There are thousands of ships, and most of them blur together. Still, something about the hesitation bothered me. I keyed the intercom and called the captain to the bridge, my voice pitched low, controlled. When I looked back at the radio, the channel was quiet again. "North Star," I said. "Caldera. We're altering course to assist. What is the nature of your cargo?" No response. The silence stretched. I could feel the ship's engines change pitch as the helmsman on the next watch made the adjustment. The deck beneath me vibrating with new intent. The captain arrived, gray-bearded and heavy-eyed, listened to my summary, frowned at the radar. "Could be low profile," he muttered. "Could be interference." He took the mic. "North Star. This is Caldera. Do you copy?" The voice came back instantly, as if it had been waiting for him. "Copy, Caldera," it said. "Please hurry." There was something else then, something faint under the words. Like wind moving through a hollow space, or water slapping against metal from very close. The captain's jaw tightened. "We're en route," he said. "Activate your AIS transponder if able." "Static." "We're trying," the voice said. "It's not responding." Over the next hour, the weather worsened. Waves climbing higher. The sky pressing down, low and starless. We should have seen them by then. A silhouette. A light. Anything. The radar remained stubbornly blank. I stayed on the bridge longer than my shift required, telling myself it was duty, not the gnawing pull in my chest. Every few minutes, the voice checked in, always on channel 16, never switching to a working frequency despite repeated requests. Each time, it sounded more strained, as if the man were growing tired or colder. At one point, between transmissions, I caught myself thinking of Luke again, of how he'd joked about the radio being the only friend you have down there, how he'd said you talk to it even when no one answers. "North Star," I said during one lull, unable to stop myself. "How many souls on board?" The reply came softer this time. "There were 22, the voice said. "There were." The captain shot me a look, sharp and questioning, but I couldn't look away from the radio. "What do you mean, were?" he asked. The static surged, then cleared. "Some were lost in the storm," the voice said. "Washed over." Another sound crept in then. Unmistakable once I noticed it. A rhythmic thumping, faint but regular, like something striking metal from the inside. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "What is that noise?" I asked. The reply came after a beat too long. "The waves," the voice said. "They hit us hard down here." Down here. The words stuck with me. "North Star," the captain said slowly. "Describe your vessel." Silence. The thumping continued, louder now, and beneath it, something else. A low murmur that might have been voices, or might have been the wind playing tricks on my ears. The radar flickered, then went back to empty. I remember gripping the edge of the console, knuckles white, the sense that we were steering towards something that did not want to be found. "Caldera," the voice said suddenly. "Urgent. They're at the door." "Who is they?" I asked, my mouth dry. Static screamed, swallowing the channel. When the voice came back, it was no longer speaking to us. It was speaking to someone else, close to the microphone, whispering, panicked, words half lost in interference. Then, clear as a bell, it said my name. "Evan," the voice said. My blood went cold. The captain turned to me. "Did you tell them your name?" I shook my head. The radio crackled again. "Evan," the voice repeated, softer now, familiar in a way that made my heart hammer against my ribs. It sounded like my brother. For a moment, no one on the bridge spoke. The engines throbbed beneath our feet. The wind battered the windows, and the radio sat between us like a living thing that had just learned how to smile. "That's not possible," the captain said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. I was staring at the speaker, my mind scrambling for explanations that didn't involve the dead learning how to use marine radios. Luke had my name memorized in that teasing way of his, stretching the first syllable when he wanted my attention. The voice had done the same thing. "North Star," the captain said carefully. "Identify yourself." Static hissed, then eased. When the voice returned, it no longer sounded strained. It sounded calm, familiar. "You came," it said. "I knew you would." My chest tightened. "Luke," I whispered before I could stop myself. The captain's hand clamped onto my shoulder. "Mercer," he warned. The radio clicked softly, like a breath drawn close to the mic. "They don't like it when you say names," the voice said. "It makes it harder to stay where we are." The radar screen flickered again, and this time, something bloomed on it. A faint smear just at the edge of detection, too large to be debris, too misshapen to be a ship. It vanished as quickly as it appeared. "We have a contact," the helmsman said, uncertainty creeping into his tone. "Or something." The captain leaned closer to the screen, eyes narrowed. "North Star," he said. "We're reading an intermittent contact. Activate a visual signal." There was a pause. Then, far off the starboard bow, a light flared, not steady, not rhythmic, but a pale white glow that winked in and out like a dying pulse. It hovered just above the waves, never fully resolving into a shape. "There," the voice said softly. "That's us." As we drew closer, the sea grew strangely calm around the light, the towering waves falling away into a slick, rolling surface that reflected the glow like oil. The rest of the ocean raged on either side, a corridor of uneasy stillness opening for us alone. "This is wrong," the captain muttered. He ordered the engines slowed. The radio crackled. "Don't stop," the voice urged. And now, there was no mistaking it. It was Luke's voice, worn thin, like a recording played too many times. "If you stop, it gets harder to hear each other." I felt tears sting my eyes, anger rising to meet them. "Where have you been?" I demanded. "What happened to your ship?" The light ahead pulsed brighter, then dimmed. "We made it through the storm," the voice said. "Or we thought we did. The passage doesn't like to be crossed. Not without taking something." The thumping sound returned, louder now, echoing through the radio, synced with the pulse of the light. The captain's face had gone pale. "All stop," he ordered suddenly. "Prepare to alter course." The engines began to wind down. The moment they did, the radio erupted in static, so loud it made us flinch. "No," the voice said, layered over itself, multiple tones bleeding together. "Don't leave us here." The light flickered wildly, stretching, warping, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw a shape inside it, tall and wrong, as if something were standing just beneath the surface of the water, holding the glow up like a lantern. "You said you needed help," the captain said, forcing steel into his voice. "Tell us how." The static subsided into a low, whispering hum. "You can't pull us out," the voice said. "That's not how it works. You have to take our place." The words hit me harder than any wave. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice barely audible. The radio clicked. "Someone has to stay," Luke's voice said gently, "so the rest can go." Images flooded my mind, not memories but impressions. A ship locked in ice-dark water, men and women clinging to railings as something vast moved beneath them, the sense of being watched from below by a patience older than charts and names. "We didn't know," the voice continued. "We thought the stories were just stories." The captain shook his head. "This is a hoax," he said, though his eyes never left the light. "Some kind of psychological." "You hear it too," the voice interrupted. "The knocking." The thumping grew louder, no longer contained by the radio, but resonating through the hull of the caldera itself, a deep, echoing impact that shuddered up from below the waterline. Alarms chirped briefly, then fell silent. "It followed you," the voice said. "It always does." The light surged closer without moving, the distance collapsing in a way that made my stomach lurch. The radar bloomed white, overwhelmed. "Evan," Luke's voice said, and there was pleading in it now. "I've been holding this place for 3 years. I'm so tired." I thought of my brother as he'd been before the sea took him, the way he'd stood on the dock with his bag slung over one shoulder, grinning like the world was a dare. I thought of all the nights I'd lain awake, imagining his final moments, and how empty those imaginings felt compared to the weight of his voice in my ears now. "He's manipulating you," the captain said quietly. But I could hear the fear under his words. The thumping became a scraping, something dragging itself along the hull. The calm water around us began to churn. "You came looking for answers," the voice said. "This is one." I stepped closer to the radio, my hands shaking. "If I stay," I said, "they let the others go?" The light pulsed once, slow and deliberate. "The passage keeps its balance," Luke's voice said. "One crossing paid for another." The captain grabbed my arm. "Mercer, listen to me," he said. "This thing is not your brother." I looked at him, then at the light, then back at the radio. "Maybe not," I said, "but it knows him." The scraping sound intensified, and the caldera lurched as if nudged from below. "Time's running thin," the voice urged. "They're waking up." I felt a strange calm settle over me, a clarity born of exhaustion and longing. "If I do this," I said, "will you finally rest?" There was a pause, the longest yet. When the voice returned, it was just Luke, no distortion, no echo. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think so." I keyed the intercom and told the captain I was going to the deck to check something. He swore, ordered an escort, but the lights flickered then, plunging the bridge into half-darkness. The radio crackled one last time. "Alone," the voice said. I don't remember the walk to the rail, only the cold air biting into my face, the way the sea below looked impossibly deep and close all at once. The light hovered off the starboard side, waiting. The knocking had stopped. I climbed the rail before anyone could stop me. For a moment, I hesitated, the reality of what I was about to do crashing over me. "Luke," I said into the night. The light pulsed. I stepped forward. The water closed over me, shockingly warm. And for an instant I felt hands. Many hands grip me, pulling me down, into a place where the light faded and the knocking began anew. The caldera's crew reported that as soon as I disappeared, the sea erupted again, waves crashing back into place, the light vanishing like it had never been there. Channel 16 went dead, returning to its familiar hiss. Later, far to the south, another ship limped into port. Battered but intact. Its crew shaken and unable to explain how they'd survived a storm that should have killed them. They said they'd heard a voice on the radio guiding them through the worst of it, calm and steady. A young man's voice that sounded tired but determined. My brother's name was not on their manifest. Mine was not on the calderas when it returned north. But every now and then, when the passage is rough and the radios are quiet, sailors swear they hear someone answer on Channel 16, a voice warning them to turn back, to wait, to respect the water. And if you listen closely, beneath the static, you can sometimes hear the knocking start. The first thing we noticed wasn't the lifeboat itself, it was the smell. Even before dawn, before the horizon had fully separated sea from sky, a sour, human smell drifted across the deck, sharp enough to cut through the salt and diesel. It made no sense. Out there, in the Drake Passage, everything clean gets stripped away by wind and water. Nothing lingers. Nothing human is supposed to linger. My name is Aaron Cole, and at the time I was working as an able seaman aboard the expedition vessel Halcyon Drift, a small ice-rated ship tasked with ferrying equipment and personnel toward the Antarctic Peninsula. I took the contract for reasons I didn't tell the crew. 2 years earlier, my wife, Emily, had died in a ferry accident off the coast of Alaska. Mechanical failure, sudden storm, lives lost, investigations closed. No body was ever recovered. I'd learned to live with unanswered questions, but I hadn't learned to live without listening for them. That's what drew me back to the water. The Drake Passage doesn't care why you're there. It just waits. We were 3 days into the crossing when the lookout called it in. "Object off port side," he said, voice tight, low in the water. I was on deck when I saw it. A dark shape bobbing between swells, rising and falling like it was breathing. At first glance, it looked like debris. Then the sun caught the orange paint, faded and scuffed, but unmistakable. A lifeboat. We slowed immediately. The captain ordered binoculars up, cameras rolling. Lifeboats aren't unheard of, but they're rare this far south, and they don't just drift. They come from somewhere. As we drew closer, details emerged that made my stomach knot. The canopy was partially collapsed, the fabric torn in long, deliberate-looking rips. One of the grab lines trailed in the water like a severed vein. The boat rode low, heavier than it should have been. "Any reports of missing vessels?" someone asked. The bridge was already checking. Nothing. No maydays. No EPIRB signals. No recent traffic logged anywhere near our position. We circled slowly, the sea heaving beneath us. The smell grew stronger. It was the smell of sweat that had dried and re-wetted too many times, mixed with something coppery and sweet that I didn't want to identify. The captain made the call to board. I volunteered before I could talk myself out of it. Part of me told myself it was duty. Another part, the quieter, more dangerous one, felt a pull toward that boat that I recognized all too well. We approached in a zodiac, the lifeboat looming larger with every swell. Up close, it looked wrong in ways that were hard to articulate. The orange paint was sun-bleached, but not evenly, as if sections had been exposed for years while others had been kept in shadow. The identification numbers were scratched away, not worn down by water, but gouged, deep and purposeful. When I grabbed the side to steady myself, the plastic was warm. Not sun-warm, body-warm. Inside, the air was thick and stale. I climbed in first. The interior was cramped. meant to hold maybe 8 people in survival conditions. There were signs that more than that had been inside at some point. Scratches along the walls at shoulder height. Handprints smeared into the condensation, overlapping. Frantic. A survival kit lay open. Contents scattered. Water rations were gone. Flares were untouched. That struck me as odd. People in trouble, fire flares. People who don't expect rescue save them. In the center of the boat was what made my throat tighten. A neatly folded jacket. Women's, medium size, blue. Emily had owned one just like it. I told myself it was coincidence. The kind your brain manufactures when you're tired and too close to old grief. Still, I couldn't stop staring at it. No bodies. The man behind me said quietly, "No blood." He was wrong about the second part. There was blood, but not pooled, not splattered. Thin smears along the floor, like something had been dragged slowly, carefully. Near the stern, I found a notebook sealed in a plastic pouch. The cover was warped, pages swollen, but some of the ink had survived. The first entry was dated 12 days earlier. The handwriting was steady, professional. A ship's log. No vessel name. Coordinates that didn't match any known route. The writer described a sudden loss of engine power, worsening seas, a decision to abandon ship. Standard stuff, until it wasn't. The next entry mentioned something in the water. Not debris, not ice. Something that moved against the current, something that stayed just out of sight. The words grew less controlled after that. Mentions of sounds at night, knocking against the hull of the lifeboat. Not waves, not ice. Knocking, described with a repetition that felt compulsive. 3 short taps. A pause. 3 more. "We counted heads this morning," one entry read. "There are fewer of us, but no one remembers anyone leaving." I felt a chill despite the layers I wore. The last legible entry was brief. "The boat is warmer at night now. We are not alone when it happens." That was it. No final plea. No explanation. We towed the lifeboat back to the Halcyon Drift, unease settling over the ship like fog. The crew avoided looking at it once it was secured, as if acknowledging it too directly might invite something unwanted aboard. I couldn't stop thinking about the jacket. I brought it to my cabin, telling myself I'd catalog it later. That night, as the ship pushed south through rising seas, I dreamed of cramped spaces and shared breath, of hands pressing against plastic walls from the inside, of a voice whispering my name in a way that sounded almost like relief. I woke to a soft sound outside my door. 3 taps, a pause, 3 more. I lay there, heart pounding, listening as the sound faded, replaced by the distant groan of the hull and the endless, patient water below. I didn't open the door. I told myself it was the ship settling, metal contracting in the cold, my mind replaying details it wasn't ready to let go of. That's the lie I held on to as I lay there, counting my breaths until dawn bled weak and gray through the porthole. The tapping didn't come again, but the absence of it felt deliberate, like something choosing patience. By morning, the lifeboat had become the unspoken center of the Halcyon Drift. No one joked. No one lingered near it longer than necessary. The captain ordered a full search of maritime reports overnight. Still nothing. No missing vessels. No distress calls. It was as if the boat had been born from the water itself. When I went to retrieve the jacket for cataloging, it was gone. I tore my cabin apart, checked with the quartermaster, the med officer, even the bridge. No one had seen it. No one admitted to touching it. That should have been the moment I went to the captain. But I didn't. Grief makes you greedy. I spent the day rereading the notebook, tracing the indentations of the pen where the writer had pressed too hard, imagining the hand that held it. The tapping returned the following night, not at my door this time, but from the direction of the deck where the lifeboat was stored. I stood there in the corridor, listening, the sound traveling through steel, impossibly clear. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. I followed it. The deck was empty, moonlight glinting off wet metal. The lifeboat sat cradled in its rigging, silent and still. When I placed my hand against its hull, I felt it again, that unnatural warmth, stronger now, as if the plastic were holding on to heat it had no right to keep. The tapping came from inside. I should have walked away. Instead, I climbed in. The air was thicker than before, humid, heavy with breath that wasn't mine. The interior light flickered on, revealing changes I was certain hadn't been there. More handprints. Fresher. The scratches along the walls deeper, overlapping in desperate arcs. The notebook lay open where I'd left it, but new writing crowded the margins. Cramped and frantic. It follows heat. It learns voices. Do not answer when it knocks. I felt a pressure in my ears, like descending too fast. Beneath it, a low sound vibrated through the hull. Not quite a voice, not quite a mechanical hum. Emily. I whispered before I could stop myself. The sound shifted, tuned, and then a voice answered from behind me. So close, I felt breath on my neck. Aaron, it said, her voice, tired, familiar. I spun around. The lifeboat was empty. The tapping stopped. I staggered back onto the deck, lungs burning, and didn't sleep again that night. By the 3rd day, the crew reported missing items, gloves, thermal liners, personal effects. Always small things. Always things that had been close to skin. The captain made the decision to jettison the lifeboat. We gathered on deck as the crane swung it out over the churning gray water. As it tipped, something slid inside, heavy enough to make the boat lurch. For a moment, I thought I saw shapes pressed against the canopy from within, distorting the fabric like hands from the wrong side of glass. The notebook fell free. Landing at my feet, the last page fluttered open. A final line had been added, the ink still wet. It only leaves when it's full. The lifeboat hit the water and was gone. Swallowed almost immediately. No bob, no resistance. As if the sea had been waiting with an open mouth. The temperature on deck dropped sharply, breath fogging. That night, the ship felt lighter, the air cleaner. No more tapping, no more warmth where it didn't belong. We completed the crossing without further incident. Weeks later, back north, reports came in of a research vessel found adrift in the Drake Passage. Engines dead, crew alive but shaken. They told investigators about a sound that had followed them for days. Knocking at night, mimicking voices. Growing louder, the colder it got, until, suddenly, it stopped. They couldn't explain why. I never told anyone about the jacket. I never told them about the voice. But sometimes, when the nights are cold and quiet, I swear I can still smell that sour, human scent on the wind, and I wonder what the ocean took in exchange for letting us go, and whether, somewhere out there, another lifeboat is drifting, already warm, already listening. If these stories made you uneasy, you're not alone. New horror stories are uploaded regularly. Subscribe if you want to keep listening. And be careful the next time the ocean sounds too quiet.